Yeah, that's the whole point. They want to make this land unlivable. The menace of drones constantly overhead, the constant threat against the people here is to intimidate them, to prevent them from returning to their land, because they want this land. That's the Trump economic zone. I think this is something that people don't talk about, and they don't join all of the dots together, really. They'll come and they'll report on a digger, but they don't explain, actually, this is part of a much, much bigger plan, an imperialist plan to create this economic zone, which would see hundreds of thousands of people displaced permanently.
Hey everybody, this is Laith Marouf from Free Palestine TV, and we just arrived in the village of Kfar Dounine. There's been a strike as we're arriving. Before we continue with this report, I ask you to press the subscribe button on whatever social media platform you're watching this on, and to go to our website, freepalestine.video, to donate so we can continue bringing you this content from the fields. So it seems like the Zionists using a fighter jet with a heavy missile attacked a house. There's also an industrial structure beside it that is now mangled. The house is gone completely. We don't have news yet if there's any martyrs injured. Clearly there is injured. People were in their homes. It's a Sunday morning, in their businesses. We have with us a special guest today, Steve Sweeney, RT reporter from Lebanon. Steve, we were heading to another location. We were not supposed to even be here right now. And as we saw the attack happened, what's your experience been watching over the last year of quote-unquote ceasefire?
Yeah, well, of course, there has never been a ceasefire in the south of Lebanon. There was only a ceasefire for one side, actually. 11,000 violations, that's according to the United Nations. So what we're seeing here today is part of a pattern of airstrikes that are carried out. Now, we don't know exactly what's happened. As we understand, a house has been struck just behind us here. Emergency services are on the scene. They're trying to carry out some kind of emergency operations. We don't know if there are any casualties at this stage, but what tends to happen now, as we've seen over the course of the past year, is that Israel will carry out strikes such as this one without warning. They will then claim that this is targeting Hezbollah infrastructure. Now, in my experience in the south...
I can see them, they're carrying a marcher into the ambulance right now.
The ambulance is taking somebody away. Now, as we see, they make these... They make these claims, they make these allegations, and every time that I've been on the scene, certainly, which is many, many times over the course of the past year, it turns out that the Zionist claim turn out to be lies.
Well, there was no secondary explosions recorded in any of the local videos.
No, of course, and we're on the scene now, and the kind of thing that we're seeing isn't consistent with weapon storage facilities. You'd see something very, very different in terms of the destruction that we're seeing here and the patterns on the walls. This is a strike against what I believe to be, and will probably turn out to be, a civilian building. And as you said in your report, this is a Sunday afternoon. This is when people are... Many people are in the south. People return from Beirut to the south to visit family. Businesses are operating. This is clearly a residential area. So we're seeing another scene of carnage. People are looking up in the air now. I don't know, maybe there might be another jet or a drone overhead, but this is certainly the kind of devastation that we're used to seeing now here in southern Lebanon. This is part, of course, of a wider strategy. Now, we can't see this in isolation from the proposed Trump economic zone here in the south, where they're trying to displace even more people. 85,000 people, of course, already displaced. This is to prevent them from returning to their lands, to prevent them from rebuilding their lands, to attacks on construction vehicles, on agriculture, the drones constantly menacing the people of the south, so they're unable unable to return to their home, and of course they want to develop this, displace people. This is ethnic cleansing. This is what we're seeing is like a Gaza 2.0. This is a blueprint for the ethnic cleansing of the people of the south.
As we're filming right now, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Sheikh Naim al-Qasim, is giving a speech. We'll listen to it, figure out what he said, and then we'll head on our continuation of our tour of the border. We drove from Kfar Dounine after we witnessed the attack all the way to Blida, right on the border with occupied Palestine. We're now in the village. There was an attack yesterday on an excavator. We're going to walk to it after we have this discussion, Steve. But this village, like much of the villages on the border, have been seeing attacks on a daily basis almost by the Zionists. You were here for one of those last attacks on Blida. Remind us what happened then.
Well, we were here actually about a week before the attack on the municipal worker took place. We actually interviewed some of the municipal workers. It was the start of the olive harvesting season, and what we saw then was instead of people being able to tend to their fields, pick the olives freely, they were asked to, they demanded a list of names of people that were going into the fields, the Zionists, that were asking for this to protect their safety, so to speak. But of course, when we were there filming, they started bulldozing those olive groves. And there were a number of strikes as well on agricultural land. And of course, as anybody in this part of the world knows, that the olive groves are the lifeblood of the South. The agricultural land is the lifeblood of the South. So the Zionists were, trying to prevent life from returning to these areas. So as we know, there's 70 families left here. We know that we can see the Israeli bases, one just this side, one here, and then the illegally built base inside Lebanese sovereign territory. So a week after we filmed that, one of the municipal workers who was sleeping in what was left of the municipal building, I think it was actually an alternative to the municipal building, I think it had been destroyed, the original building, but the Israeli armed forces made an incursion in the night time, about 4 o'clock in the morning or something like this, in the early hours of the morning, and assassinated him as he slept, killed him in cold blood. Now, you'll remember, of course, the response to that was huge outrage, of course. This is, an assassination of a municipal worker killed in his sleep. And under pressure, the Lebanese president, Joseph Aoun, said, well, we're going to mobilize the armed forces, and I instruct the Lebanese army to mobilize to protect and defend the Lebanese sovereign territory against Israeli incursions. Now, this was, I can't remember, ago. This was October last year. And since then, we've seen incursion after incursion after incursion, and the Lebanese army hasn't confronted any of them. In fact, just a week or so, or just over a week ago now, the Lebanese president said that he was proud that not one single shot had been fired by the Lebanese army in his 1 year of presidency. Now, of course, I don't know, I'm an outsider, but for me, that's not anything to be proud of when, according to the United Nations, at least 11,000 violations, more than 11,000 Israeli violations have taken place since November 2024. Now,
and I think the number of martyrs is over 400 right now since the quote-unquote ceasefire. One thing that, as we were driving into the village and trying to find the location of the attack on the excavator, the villagers that we asked were not happy that there was tons of media that came today to check on the excavator, but not many that come when there was attacks on homes and on civilians. Me and you, FBTV team, and you, of course, have made it our mission to be there for the people, and we've been here many times throughout this war. But this is a feeling now of the locals where they feel abandoned in general, not only from the Lebanese government, but from all the international
media. I think, yes, this is a very, very good point. And as journalists, it's our job not to raise our profile and our voice. It's our job to raise the voices of the of the people of this land, and that's a principle that I take forward in my journalism. I know it's the same for you. These are voices that are largely silenced by the media, but they're the voices that matter. And it's not just it's the media; it's the Lebanese government, and those voices are excluded from the narrative at a time when that their land is to be stolen by this combination of the United States, the Gulf states, and Israel want to clear all of this land out. Now, look, this is what we're seeing here. Now, if we turn around, you can see here this is a construction vehicle. I don't know, a digger.
Yeah.
And yesterday, this was hit in an Israeli strike. Now, for people that are not familiar with this land and this territory, they might look at this and think, well, it's only a construction vehicle. Why are they targeting a construction vehicle? Well, they've targeted many, many construction vehicles and construction sites. I've reported from on the ground from many of those, hundreds of millions of pounds worth of damage to these vehicles. And these are crucial, not just in terms of clearing the land, but also the rebuilding of this land. And these things are not very easy to replace. They're very expensive. It's very hard to buy a new vehicle and bring it into, particularly into the south. So this is kind of, I guess, the systematic. I mean, there's a number of things going on: the targeting of civilian buildings, the destruction of the land, the targeting of construction vehicles to prevent that land from being rebuilt, the targeting of agricultural land to kind of, I don't know, to
make it unlivable. And
well, that's the whole point. Yeah, that's the whole point. They want to make this land unlivable. The menace of drones constantly overhead, the constant threat against the people here is to intimidate them, to prevent them from returning to their land, because they want this land. That's the Trump economic zone. I think this is something that people don't talk about, and they don't join all of the dots together, really. They'll come and they'll report on a digger, but they don't explain, actually, this is part of a much, much bigger plan, an imperialist plan to create this economic zone, which would see hundreds of thousands of people displaced permanently from their land. This land will then be under the control of the United States. I've seen a number of kind of possibilities, but we're talking somewhere between 27, 32 villages that will be completely depopulated. And what we're seeing in Gaza with the new Gaza, they call it.
Yeah.
This was Trump's great plan. He's seeing it in business terms, like a real estate.
We kind of see like a hybrid version of the West Bank and Gaza being implemented in the south, and I mean by that hybridization of those two models is, on the one hand, you have like a kind of a Mahmoud Abbas authority, non-authority that's called itself the Lebanese government, that claims that it wants to have a monopoly over weapons to supposedly defend the country, but then refuses to defend the country and watches as the resistance and those who live in the south get bombarded all around Lebanon. And then the Gaza version, which you started talking about right there, the model of Gaza, which is depopulated areas that will be looted by the Americans and the Israeli investors, and to make some...
Well, this is the point, Laith, isn't it? Who is going to benefit from this regeneration project? Where will the this inward investment they're talking about from the Gulf states, from Qatar, from the UAE, from Saudi Arabia, that are going to be apparently, along with the United States money, investing in this area? Well, it's not going to be for the benefit of the Lebanese people. It's not going to be for the benefit of the people that are actually the owners of this land. That wealth is going to be extracted
by the imperialist powers. The resources of this land are going to be extracted by the imperialist powers. This is not a new plan, by the way. This is, you can go back to the creation of the State of Israel in 1948. You can go back before then, but particularly during that period of the 1980s, you can look at the declassified CIA documents that show that this was something. Back then they were using the South Lebanese army as a proxy force to control this area. Now they're even more open. The difference is between now and then is in the 1980s, this was not supported by the Lebanese government. Now it's being implemented by the Lebanese government. And if you look at again, it's about joining the dots, looking at the bigger picture. And you saw what happened back last year. All of a sudden, Lebanon has a functioning government. Everybody's celebrating. But what happened? You have the former head of the armed forces becoming the president at the behest of the United States. The worst was I would say it's not an election, it's the appointment of Nawaf Salam. But where was Nawaf Salam before he became prime minister? Well, he was the head of the ICJ, and he was the head of the ICJ at a time when it's carrying out the investigations against Israel for a plausible genocide against the Palestinians in Gaza. But they took him out. They took him out of that post. He was replaced by a Ugandan judge, the only judge on that panel that was voting in favor of Israel. So now she could play a major role in blocking that case of genocide against Netanyahu, against the Israelis. And then he comes here. And what's his role here? Well, his role here is clearly the disarmament of the resistance organizations, the disarmament of Hezbollah. And once you disarm Hezbollah from these lands, they're completely undefended. There's no Lebanese army here. Although they're supposedly now in control of this area south of Litani to the border, but it leaves the people here very vulnerable. And of course, then the plan to create this special economic zone, the Trump economic zone. I mean, he's even named it after himself. He's so vain.
I mean, look, he is definitely a emperor that is very blunt, and maybe that's a good thing. We don't need that liberal camouflage for the imperial order. There was just two more things we can mention. There was an attack here in Blida a few weeks ago on a scooter, and a young man was martyred. So the blood is still fresh in this village. There's multiple attacks today. As we're speaking, there's attacks in the Beqaa Valley and attacks on other villages in the south. There hasn't been any recorded martyrs or injured yet, other than the two in Kfar Dounine and an injured there that we know also in Kfar Dounine. Well, look at this. Two missiles hit where the excavator is. And as you mentioned, there's been hundreds of these machines, and there even dealerships that were attacked. It's in the hundreds of millions of dollars of losses. It's very hard to replace these machines. You gotta import them. You gotta license them. You gotta even if you import them, it takes time to get them out on the street.
Exactly. Where are you going to get the money for this?
And there's no insurance, and no insurance for all the damages, not only on these homes, which is part of the plan. It's most people in the region here, in Palestine, in Syria, and Lebanon, don't keep their money in the banks. They buy property, they buy land, and once these homes are destroyed and there's no insurance on them, that's basically the generational wealth of the people of South Lebanon is being burned to the ground, and there's no way to come back from this destitute. We could hear some gunfire, machine gun fire, from Bayad Blida Israeli checkpoint there. They've been doing this for the past months in many of the frontline villages, at night, during the day. And a few days ago, I can't remember in which village, the Lebanese military with the UNIFIL were trying to enter, and they got targeted by machine gun fire. Clearly, it was in Khiyam, right? Thank you.
Just south of Khiyam.
Yeah. So clearly, the president claiming that the Lebanese army is going to go in now and take their positions. That's not happening. They're not shooting back. Well, this was a good discussion. Thank you very much, Steve Sweeney, for being with us. RT is one of the few international agencies that are still doing their work. People should follow you on Twitter and on Telegram. Do you have any presence on Telegram or just Twitter?
A little bit of Telegram, but mainly it's Twitter and Instagram as well.
Perfect. And I ask you all to press the subscribe button one more time on whatever social media platform you're watching this on, to go to our website, freepalestine.video, to donate so we can continue bringing you this content. Behind the camera is Hadi Hotait. I'm Laith Marouf. Until we see you next time, I bid you all a free Palestine and a free Lebanon.